Coming up, a new Phoenix City Council campaign aims to reduce pedestrian deaths and the state's high rate of traffic accidents on the road.
Plus, how a new flight academy in Arizona aims to tackle the nationwide pilot shortage head-on.
And later on Break It Down, we look at why more millennials are dealing with chronic illness.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Kelly Donahue.
And I'm Atria Mineshny. Thank you for joining us. Phoenix is one of the worst in the nation when it comes to safety on our roads, and Phoenix has one of the highest fatality rates. The problem is worse in lower income neighborhoods and communities of color. Molly McBride tells us what the city of Phoenix is trying to do to make our streets safer.
Earlier this week, the City Council voted to join the Vision Zero network and create an action plan to make city streets safer. The plan will include major improvements to roads and intersections across the city. I talked to a local business employee who says the change is welcome.
2-car collision, 3-car collision. The most I've seen is a 4-car collision.
Giovanni Mojica works near the intersection of 19th Avenue and Southern. He says he has seen a lot of accidents during his time working at the Quick Corner. So many that he has gotten used to the sound.
And after like 3 times, you just already know that noise is so familiar. It's a car accident.
19th Avenue and Southern is one of the 3 intersections that the city of Phoenix is focusing some of its first safety efforts toward. The others are 75th Avenue and Indian School and 16th Street and Camelback. In a policy session earlier this week, the City Council heard about data from the National Highway Safety Administration that ranked Phoenix as 3rd highest for fatalities, right behind LA and Houston. The numbers don't surprise City Council members.
You know, it seems every day that we as the mayor and the City Council members get a text from our police commander liaison that alerts us to some traffic fatality. Tragically, it often involves a pedestrian.
One step as a part of the Vision Zero network is for the city to create a road safety action plan. Improvements will include modernizing traffic signals, identifying hotspots, and developing crash data analysis tools. The final plan will be presented to the City Council this fall. And for Mojica, the drive towards safety is welcome.
Well, I hope that they see that they care, that the city cares about the community. So hopefully, it uplifts the community in a better way.
The City of Phoenix is seeking input on how to improve roads in your neighborhood. You can take an interactive survey at phoenix.gov/road safety. In the newsroom, Molly McBride, Cronkite News.
It's starting to look like Moderna's Omicron booster won't be ready before summer. The company began clinical trials on the vaccine this week, but as Moderna plans to get authorization from the FDA for its Omicron-specific vaccine booster by the summer, the company's chief medical officer says that the targeted vaccine may not be available to the public until the second half of the year. Pfizer and BioNTech are also racing to test their version of an Omicron-specific vaccine, and it could be ready to launch as early as March.
As tensions rise between Russia and Ukraine, the U.S. is readying troops, including some here in Arizona. More than 100,000 Russian troops are now stationed near Ukraine. Russia says it won't start a war, but has warned the U.S. and NATO have ignored demands and left little room for compromise. The Pentagon says it's put several military troops on heightened preparedness for deployment, including some at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson.
These units, all told, include medical support, aviation support, logistics support, and of course, combat formations. I want to just underscore one other note, and that is, as I said many times earlier this week, these forces are on a heightened preparedness to deploy. They have not been activated.
8,500 other troops across the country were also told to prepare, including those at Fort Bragg, Fort Hood, and Fort Carson. President Joe Biden has committed to nominating the nation's first black female Supreme Court justice. The president strongly affirmed yesterday that he will nominate the first black woman to the nation's highest court. He says the historic representation is long overdue. This comes after Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer announced his retirement, nearly 28 years on the bench. Biden says he plans to announce his choice by the end of February.
Coming up after the break, a major airline recently opened a new flight school in the West Valley. We'll let you know where that school is and the issue they hope to fix.
And later, the first family has a new pet that you may have seen before. We'll take you to the White House and show you the new addition to their family.
I was so excited when I learned that I was going to be the next moderator of Washington Week. I was incredibly lucky to be mentored by Gwen Ifill, and what that gave to me was this confidence that I could be my full self and that I was deserving of whatever spaces I was in.
Welcome to Washington Week.
I also feel this great joy in taking the helm of Washington Week, knowing that I can mold it and make it my own, but also make sure that it is still within the legacy and the tradition that made it so great for all of these years.
Many people across the country have experienced canceled or delayed flights in recent months because of staffing shortages. While United Airlines is getting national attention for something they're doing right here in the Valley to combat that problem. The airline recently opened its new Aviate Academy in Goodyear. United hopes to be able to train 500 pilots each year at the new school. This all comes as the airline industry faces some major pilot shortages. American Airlines hopes to hire 2,000 more pilots by the end of the year, and Delta is looking to hire up to 200 per month. United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby said they hope this program will be more accessible to more people.
Really about creating that economic opportunity to let people come in who don't have $100,000 to spend on their certification, but have great potential, great ability.
The cost to attend this school, a little more than $70,000. United Airlines says 80% of its students here are women or people of color, but there is still progress to be made. When it comes to their commercial pilots, United says about 80% are white men, while industry-wide, that number is 90%.
If you're flying out of the Northeast this weekend, be aware of thousands of canceled flights due to a winter storm. But here in the Valley, we'll be seeing much warmer temps. Peyton Major has a look at your forecast for this weekend.
It's nothing compared to the winter storm, but you might have felt some pretty strong wind gusts today. And those are because of these easterly winds. They're moving in pretty fast, but luckily they're dying down for the night. Still hanging around 20 miles an hour for Casa Grande in Tucson. Overnight tonight and into tomorrow, though, they're trickling back to normal. A drive-through testing site in Pima County had to close from the strong winds. This footage is from earlier in the week when the Pima County drive-through testing site just opened at the Pima Community College West campus. The site was closed today after wind gust warnings. In a press release, the Pima County Health Department said high winds could blow over tables, tents, cones, and other equipment. The site is expected to reopen Saturday at 8 a.m. But lucky for us, besides the winds, we're only dealing with clear skies and a few lingering clouds. But the big elephant in the room is this bomb cyclone, or nor'easter is what we like to call it. It's going to bring up to 20 inches of snow to the East Coast. But the only thing on our minds will be these mid to upper level clouds that'll linger in Saturday night into Sunday, but will clear out by Sunday night. Lows tonight, we're looking at 49 in Phoenix, 44 up there in Cane Creek, 44 in Surprise, right around average this time of year. And tomorrow, we're looking at a beautiful day ahead. 74 in Phoenix, 44 up there in Flagstaff, 72 in Yuma. The next 3 days, we are still hanging right around average, 72. Again, don't let those clouds that trickle in Sunday morning change your plans at all. It'll still be a beautiful day. Come Monday, still in the 70s. Wednesday, though, there is a low that brings a little bit of a lower temperature system into our area. We're hitting the 60s as well. But again, beautiful week ahead, and next weekend should be just as beautiful. Cronkite Weather Center, I'm Peyton Major.
I'm Hayden Weber. Coming up after the break, I'll have your Cronkite Sports Report, including a shakeup on the Arizona State football coaching staff. We'll tell you who's leaving the program next.
I was so excited when I learned that I was going to be the next moderator of Washington Week. I was incredibly lucky to be mentored by Gwen Eiffel, and what that gave to me was this confidence that I could be my full self and that I was deserving of whatever spaces I was in.
Welcome to Washington Week.
I also feel this great joy in taking the helm of Washington Week, knowing that I can mold it and make it my own, but also make sure that it is still within the legacy and the tradition that made it so great for all of these years.
Welcome back to Cronkite News. I'm Hayden Weber, and this is your Cronkite Sports Report. The fallout from the NCAA investigation into ASU football recruiting violations has begun. 4 coaches are out from today's shakeup, including offensive coordinator Zach Hill. Hill resigned his position, as did tight ends coach Adam Brenneman. Brenneman, along with wide receivers coach Prentice Gill and secondary coach Chris Hawkins, had been placed on administrative leave last summer. Hawkins and Gill were fired. All 4 coaches were implicated in the alleged violations that occurred at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. Meanwhile, ASU men's basketball coach Bobby Hurley returns to the bench following his 1-game suspension. The Sun Devils take on third-ranked Arizona tomorrow in Tucson. Cronkite News reporter Brianna Isbell says Hurley is happy to be back with the team.
Reflecting back on Saturday's tough loss, Bobby Hurley feels enormous regret having to watch his team face USC without his leadership following his suspension.
Yeah, it was. It felt surreal. It was. I felt, enormous regret to not be there with my team, and loved how hard we were competing, especially the first 15 minutes or so of that game, and the energy we had, and it was the best I think we played all season versus Stanford.
With an intense rivalry game this Saturday, the Sun Devils are ready to ignite in hopes for a win against the U of A Wildcats.
It's a big rivalry. I've been from Arizona. I know some guys on the Arizona team. They're been playing really good this year and stuff like that. So it's gonna be a big game. I'm gonna try to have fun and try to go out there and win.
Arizona is statistically is really good in so many different categories. It's kind of scary that they nationally have performed so well.
Despite what has happened, Hurley is at peace and is ready to take on the third-ranked team, the U of A Wildcats, in Tucson this Saturday. For Cronkite News, I'm Brianna Isbell.
The MMA is back in Arizona this weekend with Bellator 273. It's the first event of 2022 and features a heavyweight title fight, and the defending champion is one of Arizona's own. Cronkite News reporter Parker Dunn has more on how a former ASU wrestler prepares to defend his title.
38-year-old heavyweight champion Ryan Bader enters Bellator 273 feeling better than ever. Still, he is the underdog in this fight. After intense training with his teammate CB Dalloway, Bader enters the octagon confident he will retain his belt.
To kind of get that last run through, like we did a simulation of the fight yesterday. Me and him ran through the 5 rounds, full-size octagon that he's going to fight in. He worked out at our home gym yesterday before coming here. He had access to our cage.
A big reason why Bader and Dalloway were able to make the most of their training sessions for this fight is because Bader did not have to travel like many of the other fighters and all of the people in their camps. The fight is practically in his backyard.
Here, you can just call up your teammate, like, need this from you or that from you. There's a lot of support for you. His family's here. If he needs anything at all, people can run and grab it.
Bader's opponent, Valentin Moldavsky, is one of the most talented young fighters in Bellator. He has a background in jiu-jitsu, which makes him very dangerous on the ground, but Bader and Dalloway do not seem too worried about this.
I've been in there with some of the better guys in the world on the ground, highly decorated black belts, world champions, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm totally fine wherever this fight goes, whether standing, not afraid to mix it up, take him down. Different areas I can exploit for sure.
We're very familiar with how he fights, stuff where there'll be weaknesses, what needs to be done, But fight's a fight, man. You can have a game plan, like Mike Tyson says. You can have a game plan so you get punched in the face.
There is lots of uncertainty in the octagon in any given fight. But in this one, there's one thing that's guaranteed. Ryan Bader is going to have the home crowd behind him, cheering him on from start to finish.
In Phoenix, Parker Dunn for Cronkite News.
Finally, how does the best team in the NBA not have a starter in the All-Star game? The Suns' Devin Booker did not make the cut, and neither did Chris Paul. The starters were announced yesterday, and the All-Star game is February 20th. That's all for your Cronkite Sports Report. Back to you, Autria.
The first family recently adopted a new pet, and she's getting quite a bit of attention today. Take a look at their new cat named Willow, who is named after the First Lady's hometown of Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. She's 2 years old, and she's the first cat to live in the White House since the George W. Bush administration. This actually isn't the first time the Bidens met Willow. First Lady Jill Biden was speaking at a campaign stop in 2020 when Willow jumped on the stage. Willow now joins Commander, the First Lady's German Shepherd, who was adopted in December of last year.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org. And on Break It Down, we take a look at why millennials are dealing with so much chronic illness. That's next.
Break It Down is brought to you in part by Mayo Clinic and viewers like you.
We know that diabetes and heart disease and other chronic conditions afflict so many Americans, and those rates are only increasing. But it turns out that 44% of millennials, folks between the ages of 25 and 40, are experiencing chronic conditions. Dr. Tony Will, break this down for me. What is going on, and why are people dealing with this at such a young age?
I really think it's multifactorial. It's one of the reasons we're seeing an increased prevalence in chronic disease in this age group is we're just getting better at diagnosing. We are improving our technology, we're improving our diagnostics. We're also improving access to primary care too, with the Affordable Care Act and the passage of that. We do have more people that are now seeing doctors, which is a good thing. However, we do have some healthcare epidemics that might be the root cause of a lot of our problems. We do have an obesity epidemic in the United States. We know that obesity is highly related to high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, which are all major risk factors for the leading cause of death in our country, which is coronary artery disease and cardiovascular disease in general. Also, the second most common cause of death in the United States is cancer, and we are seeing an increased prevalence in cancer diagnoses, particularly at a young age, especially now with colon cancer. We've actually changed our screening guidelines because of the increased prevalence. But a lot of the root cause, if you look at it, has to do quite a bit with our obesity epidemic in our country.
So it seems like we're talking a lot about lifestyle, right? Sort of lifestyle related illnesses, lifestyle related diseases and chronic conditions, but these folks are young. I mean, I'm unfortunately not in this age group anymore, right? So these are young folks. Why are we seeing such a huge increase in especially things like diabetes and obesity and heart disease? What do you think? Especially if we're talking about older millennials, 35 to 40-year-olds, that's still really young.
It is young. And what we really need to do is address lifestyle. Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. And lifestyle medicine is a very big part of medicine now, fortunately. And really what we need to focus on is getting healthier. So what does that mean? So really it goes back to the basics that most of us know, improvement in diet, embracing the Mediterranean diet, which is endorsed by the American College of Cardiology, which is limiting our saturated fats, increasing our monounsaturated fats, nuts, fish, lean protein, olive oil, and having plenty of fruits and vegetables. That's really important. That's the best medicine is nutrition. And the other factor that's so important, particularly with the next epidemic really, which is anxiety and depression and mental health, is exercise. And it's so important to have adequate exercise. We recommend 150 minutes per week of exercise. A lot of times people are intimidated by that, particularly people that don't routinely exercise or know how to start. And what we'll often say is just start walking. Just start getting out and walking. You don't have to join a gym. You don't have to spend a lot of money on exercise equipment. Just get out and walk 150 minutes per week. Okay, that's really important. The other really important part of lifestyle is not smoking. The number one thing you can do for your health is not smoke, and limiting your alcohol intake and not engaging in risky behavior or substance abuse. That's really the heart of this is really just a change in lifestyle. The other factor too is getting quality sleep and reducing stress. And that's a really large component of another problem that we have, which is mental health.
And are we seeing higher rates of stress among this particular age group, do you think?
Yeah, so what's interesting is since the pandemic, over 50% of young adults had identified as having diagnosable depression or anxiety. A lot of it had to do with the stress associated with the pandemic, as long as the isolation that was associated with the pandemic. And that isolation oftentimes contributed really to physical inactivity and obesity as well.
Got it. Yeah. And I know many of us are trying to embrace that Mediterranean diet and get in our 150 minutes of exercise. And it's certainly not, it's tough. It's challenging, but seems like so necessary. What do you think the implications of this are for our healthcare system? I mean, you mentioned earlier, these are our future leaders. This is a huge generation. In fact, it's the largest generation in the United States right now, right? So what are the implications for our healthcare delivery system?
That's a big concern. So you would expect as physicians that we would spend a lot of our time and energy taking care of older adult population geriatrics. But with this being the largest segment of our society, we're seeing a lot more people getting access to care, and we're seeing people with earlier diagnoses, and they're living longer with chronic diseases. And that definitely places a strain on the patients. First of all, people who have one chronic disease spend more than twice the amount that an average person has for out-of-pocket expenses. If you have two chronic disease processes, you have 5 times as much annual out-of-pocket expense. Not only do you have the burden of having a health condition, now you have the stress and the financial stress associated with having a chronic disease condition that you'll likely have for the rest of your life, and we are living longer as well.
Absolutely. And especially when you think about those costs and you think about this age group, older millennials, I mean, this is really right around the time when people are creating foundations for their careers, building families, buying homes. So this is a huge burden. And I think probably something a lot of us are not thinking about. What advice would you give your millennial patients? If you had to give them sort of 1 or 2 pieces of really important advice, what do you give patients of that age group right now that are either dealing with these chronic conditions or trying to avoid them altogether?
First and foremost, if you're well and you're healthy and you're doing well now, take good care of yourself. Again, embrace that lifestyle. Make sure that you establish with a good primary care provider, that you have a good relationship, and that you're getting evaluated at least annually and getting checked up on. Again, lifestyle, take care of yourself, exercise well, eat well, embrace mental health and sleep and wellness and spirituality. Whatever it takes for you to remain more balanced is so important. The other thing that I would recommend, if someone is living with a chronic disease and feels overwhelmed, which is common, one day at a time. Take it one day at a time. Take care of yourself. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself with time for your friends and your family. Embrace your mental health, embrace your outlook on life, which will ultimately improve your longevity as well.
Great advice. And I love to hear that. Really focus on your lifestyle, focus on prevention. And I love to hear, especially taking it one day at a time. Dr. Tony Will, thank you so much for breaking it down today on this important topic affecting lots of young folks in our society. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you. If you have comments about Arizona PBS News, please contact us at one of the addresses on your screen. Thank you.